You know that feeling when the market seems to be just holding its breath, like
Hmm.
everything's paused, and you're wondering what that quiet really means?
Yeah,
That's kind of the vibe around Ethereum lately, right? And if you're watching the charts, you're probably trying to decode these, well, these calm periods.
absolutely. And to get a clearer picture of what might be brewing, we've been looking at some interesting analysis of Ethereum's recent price action.
Okay.
This involves looking at both the patterns on the charts and also the data coming right off the blockchain itself.
Right, the on-chain stuff.
Exactly. Our goal today is really to understand what these different views are telling us about where Ethereum's price might go next.
Okay, sounds good. Let's maybe kick things off with the daily chart then. What's the bigger picture story there?
Well, the immediate thing that kind of grabs your attention is how consistently Ethereum has been trading near that $1,500 level.
$1,500,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a point that's held firm since, January of last year. So it's become a really significant area that the market is clearly watching.
So it's got that psychological weight then.
Definitely. It becomes a key marker for a lot of people trading.
So it's a level everyone's watching, but what's the actual like activity been around that point? Has it been busy?
Actually, no. What's quite notable is the very, very low market activity we're seeing. The price isn't really making any big moves.
Just sideways.
Essentially, yeah, moving sideways in a pretty tight range. You could see this as a period of consolidation. Neither buyers nor sellers have really managed to take clear control.
Right, like a balanced standoff for now.
Exactly.
And people often say that these low activity periods can be, well, telling, almost like something's building up pressure, right?
Precisely. Think of it like a period of indecision, you know?
Right.
When volatility stays this low for a while, it often suggests a bigger price change is coming.
Ah,
The market's waiting for something to tip the scales, maybe news, maybe just sentiment shift, some catalyst to trigger a more substantial move.
so what are the potential directions? What are the analysts looking at for that next move?
Right now, the technical picture suggests, well, there's potential for downward movement if we see more selling pressure kick in,
Okay.
a clear break below that $1,500 support. That could lead to a pretty rapid move lower, potentially towards $1,100. That's a real possibility to keep in mind.
1,100. Wow, okay. That definitely sounds like a level to watch.
Yeah.
On the flip side, is there any potential for an upward bounce in the short term based on this daily chart?
There is, yeah. There is a possibility of a short-term upward move, maybe a bounce towards the, let's say, $1,800 resistance level.
1,800.
But the analysis suggests that even if we see that kind of bounce, sellers might just step back in around that point.
Ah, so it might not hold.
It might not, potentially leading to another test of that $1,500 support again.
So it really, really hinges on how the price behaves right around that $1,500 mark in the next few days or weeks.
Absolutely. That price action is going to be key for signaling the direction of Ethereum's next major trend, at least on the daily chart.
Okay.
Now, if we zoom in a bit to the 4-hour chart, we can get a more granular view of this recent sideways action.
Okay, good idea. So what details pop out when we look at that shorter time frame?
Looking at the more recent price action, you can really see that tight range we mentioned.
Hmm.
Ethereum's been bouncing between that $1,500 support on the low end and an upper level around $1,600. That upper level forms the top boundary of what looks like a sort of descending channel, two downward sloping lines, basically.
I see. So the price is sort of squeezed between them.
Exactly. And this really highlights that sense of equilibrium, that hesitation in the immediate market activity.
So an even tighter standoff in the very short term.
That's a good way to put it. And just like we saw on the daily chart, a breakout from this tighter range is going to be very informative. If Ethereum can manage to push above that $1,600 level,
Yeah.
we might see that short-term move towards $1,800 that we talked about earlier.
Okay, so a breakup could mean a run to 1,800. And what about the potential for a downward move on this 4-hour view?
Well, the concern aligns perfectly with what we saw on the daily. A break below that critical $1,500 level.
Still the key level.
Still the key level. A break below there is likely to trigger a pretty significant move downwards in the midterm, with that $1,100 level again being a potential target.
1,100 again.
Yeah. So across both time frames, that $1,500 level just really stands out as crucial for understanding what might happen next based purely on the charts, the technicals.
Okay, so that's the picture the charts are painting.
Yeah.
Low volatility, critical support, potential for moves either way. But you mentioned we also have some on-chain data to consider, specifically funding rates.
That's right.
Can you maybe explain what those are and what insights they might offer here?
Certainly. So funding rates basically give us a sense of the overall sentiment in the futures markets.
Okay, the futures market.
Yeah. They show whether traders betting on the price going up are paying those betting on it going down, or, vice versa. It's like a window into the prevailing bias in those leveraged trading environments.
Got it. So what are the funding rates telling us right now? What's the state there?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. What's particularly striking is the similarity being observed between the current behavior of both the price and these funding rates
Okay.
and what we actually saw play out between September and November of 2024.
Oh, September to November 24. I remember that period. What was notable about that time?
That was a period marked by, well, similar prolonged consolidation, sideways movement, even some price corrections mixed in.
Right. It felt quite uncertain then, too.
Exactly. However, what followed that period was a pretty substantial upward surge in price, a strong rally. So seeing similar patterns emerging now, well, it offers a potentially encouraging historical comparison, doesn't it?
It does. So if history is any kind of guide, this current quiet period could actually be setting the stage for maybe some positive movement down the line.
That's certainly one interpretation the analysis points towards. It suggests that these market conditions, the sideways price action and these funding rates hovering near zero, can often reflect what's sometimes called smart money accumulation.
Smart money accumulation.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that imply? What does that mean?
Think of it like this. It suggests that more informed investors, perhaps those with a longer-term view, are using these periods. Periods where maybe retail traders are feeling a bit panicky or uncertain and selling. They're using these times to quietly buy up assets, to build their positions.
So they're accumulating when others might be getting shaken out.
Precisely. They're essentially building their positions when others might be less confident about the short-term outlook.
And the fact that funding rates are near zero and also consolidating, just like the price. How does that fit into this accumulation idea?
Well, it indicates that there isn't a strong speculative bias in the futures market right now. Neither the bulls nor the bears have strong conviction, judging by those rates.
So it's not overly skewed one way or the other.
Exactly. And this kind of neutral environment can be ideal for those with a longer-term positive view to gradually accumulate positions without causing, huge immediate price spikes. It allows for a more controlled process of buying.
Okay, that does sound like a potentially positive underlying sign for the future then. But you mentioned earlier, or the analysis does, that further price drops are still possible even during these accumulation phases.
Yes, and that's a really, really important point to stress. Even if we are in a phase of smart money accumulation, it absolutely does not guarantee that the price won't dip further in the short term.
Right. Accumulation doesn't mean the bottom is necessarily in.
Exactly. In fact, sometimes those temporary dips, those lower prices, can actually present even more attractive buying opportunities for those long-term investors looking to build bigger positions.
Makes sense.
So the key takeaway from the on-chain side is that this underlying accumulation activity, if that's what's happening, suggests potential for a significant recovery eventually, even if there might be some more short-term choppiness or even further downside along the way.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. We're looking at a market that's currently pretty stable, consolidating around a really critical support level at $1,500. The technical analysis, the charts, they point to the possibility of a significant, it could be up, could be down, depending on how that level holds or breaks.
That's the short-term technical picture, yes.
But then the on-chain data, specifically looking at those funding rates and the historical comparison, offers a potentially more, shall we say, optimistic longer-term perspective, hinting at a possible accumulation phase similar to what happened before a major price increase back in late 24.
Precisely. Both these perspectives, the technical and the on-chain, they provide really valuable context. They help give you a more comprehensive understanding of what's actually going on with Ethereum right now.
Definitely gives more nuance than just looking at one or the other. So with these different signals, you've got the short-term technical uncertainty, but also these potentially encouraging longer-term on-chain indicators. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What factors do you believe will ultimately be the deciding ones for Ethereum's next big move? It's certainly something valuable to mull over as you continue to watch how the market evolves.